Hi everyone, so this is my first time doing the voiceover, so pardon me if I mess up at all. So what I'm drawing here is a picture of Michelangelo's statue of David. So I've just started out with getting the general ideas of where things are going to be placed, from facial features to shadows. So I'm just kind of drawing it all out, giving myself a general idea. I am using a reference here, so you'll see my little laptop over there in the corner. And that does have my picture that I'm using on it. Unfortunately, I don't show about it at any point. What I did just now, though, is I've just kind of minimalized the pencil strokes that I have to be seen, so that way they're not so dark. I am going to be doing this one in pen and ink, as you can see. So again, I've started off getting all the different places for items to be moved. Now, during this one, it is going to be a little bit of a longer video because I am doing a technique called stippling. Basically, I'm just going to be shading with lots and lots of tiny little dots. So the darker the space that you see on the page, the more dots I've added. So lighter areas can be a little bit harder just because you have to kind of space them out nice and neat. So that way it still flows with your image. So just started here on the eyes. That is my favorite place to start. It's kind of the central area. Also probably draws your focus in a little bit more. I love eyes. So that is definitely, you'll see that a lot in my artwork. I had a little trouble with this eyebrow here in the beginning. I don't know, I couldn't get the shape and the form of it the right way for me. So I tended to work around, and I did come back to it eventually, but I got that bottom part in. Noses are kind of interesting characters. I see I started it, and then I've already gone away with it, going, oh, I'm going to worry about that later. But yeah, it's definitely hard to draw a nose. People have this thought in their head of what the nose should look like, what's appealing, but it's really never what is actually there. It's the most awkward thing to draw. Good tip from my high school teacher actually was to draw it upside down, which I didn't do here, but I've gotten used to it. But if you're ever having trouble, draw it upside down. It doesn't look like a nose, it doesn't look like anything, so you're just drawing the shapes that you see. So that usually helped me growing up. But I've moved down over here now, so I've got some of the lips done, started on the cheeks. I went back to the lips a couple different times. The idea of getting the texture of a lip but in dot form was a little challenging. You can't really draw some of the detail of lines and stuff, so you kind of just still have to get the idea of where at least the shadows and stuff go. Back to that nose up here, see, I've kind of ignored it for a little bit. The bridge of the nose is always kind of fun because, you know, you do have depth there, but it's very minimal, so it also tends to look like just like a giant street down the face. Yeah, I don't know. This one was still fun for me, though. I really enjoyed it. It was difficult and challenging. It definitely cramped my hand a lot. With regular drawing, you can at least be a little looser with your hand. With all these little dots, my hand did tend to get really stiff. So this video is kind of broken up into little videos of 2 hours. So you might see a little change, you might not. But yeah, so I could only really handle about 2 hours of stippling just with my hand in that exact position the entire time. I definitely had some soreness going on. But overall, though, I'm really happy with how the piece turned out, and I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. So you see, I've gone back to the chin now, gone back around the face. I'm starting to fill in some of the darker areas. I got a little shy there in the beginning, but started hitting on his cheek here, and it does get rather dramatic as you keep on watching. But with, again, the darker the area, the more dots you have, but you also then have to make sure that they're equal and looking normal. So you'll see a couple different spots where it's a little blotchy. It does even out, just again because you're not using lines, you're just using dots. So you still have to make sure that they look normal. So But it was kind of an interesting picture I had chosen to use as well because it actually got chopped off right at the chin, just above it. So you don't even actually see the chin in this picture. So I did extend it a little bit, just to kind of give it a free fall off feel. So you'll see where on the side I've got his chin stopped. So I kind of had to make up a little parts of this, but it kind of flowed really nicely still. And I knew it was going to flow well still with the hair as well, because the hair in marble, it doesn't flow. I mean, it's marble. So you kind of had to get that same flowy idea. So I wanted to extend that down toward the bottom as well. But defining this chin though here, you see me working from top to bottom to top to bottom. It was hard just to do only one section because I wanted to make sure that it would blend. So you'll see me kind of go bouncing back and forth a little bit here, from one side to the other as it slowly blended out. And then here I had kind of a hard time, like, do I want to stop it just at the chin with the background? But I did end up adding a little bit extra, which you'll see me get to soon. But here though, I had contemplated, do I stop here? Do I not? See, I'm bouncing back around. You'll see me bounce around a lot during this project. I found that with dots, you tend to get a little bored of one spot for too long of a time period. So by switching back to different things, it allows at least my eyes to focus on something else for a minute, and then I can go back again. I do get a little ADD with drawing, so sometimes I'll back and forth between projects even. Where I'll work on one project for a while and then I'll stop and then I'll come back to it. That's actually happened with this project a couple times. I definitely needed to give my hand a break from all the dots. Okay, so cool. So we're going to get up into his forehead here. This was actually one of my more favorite parts because it got into the hair, and you got to have a little bit more texture up here, which is interesting to create with making just dots. So you can see some of like his freckles and spots and chips and just different dents in a marble statue, which I thought was interesting since it is marble. But yeah, this part kind of was fun for me to get into the hair to still make it look like hair. But again, you all see me get a little distracted again because I start to move away from different sections. I noticed that with wherever the dots were going, my hand was going, and then all of a sudden I'd be back in a different section of the paper again. So then I go back to my hair again. So this project though I'm really happy that I did it. It kind of came to me on a whim. I hadn't used the stippling technique in several years, probably, since high school, which was now almost 10 years ago. We had to use this style for a different project. I think it was probably my sophomore year, where I had to make a circle and turn it into a sphere, the 3D version of a ball basically. And I could only shade with this technique and still make it look smooth and still make it look like it was a ball. After that project, I probably had decided, I was like, we're not going to do this technique ever again. But I don't know, there's something about it right now that it was a lot of time, it's a lot of patience, it's really taxing on your arm. But overall, it's a gorgeous style. It lends a different view of an image. I don't normally use a lot of pen and ink, markers specifically. I love black and white things, but it's definitely a little bit out of my medium. With drawing, I can erase it and redo and erase and redo. With pen and ink, you can't really do that. Once it's there, and you got what you got. So it's always a little more challenging for me when I end up using pen and ink. I don't think I've mentioned it before. I am using Micron pen. I have a couple different styles. I got some from Blick, the art department store. I've got a couple Microns. I think I've got one other style too. I know for my markers, I have the cool chameleon pens. They're super fun. Look them up if you don't know what they are. But yeah, like I said, most of the time I don't use pen and ink. But this one was great. I had actually a bit of trouble with this ear. It did give me some issues. It wasn't very defined in the drawing, and so but with pen and ink, and especially with this, I kind of have to still figure out the evenness of the dots. So I did have to make up a little bit of his ear based off of what I could see, but overall I think it still turned out pretty well. Yeah. Here we get into again finishing out that ear, but you'll start to see my hand a lot more throughout this last part of the video. As I got closer and closer to the corner, the page started to bounce with my pen, because I kind of go back up and down, kind of similar to a, oh gosh, I'm going to embarrass myself here. The sewing machine, there we go, where the little needle just kind of comes up and down, and that's what my hand is doing. It's a bunch, and so if the paper is moving, I actually tend to make little lines versus little dots, and I could not have that. That would ruin it all completely, at least it did in my head. And then you'll see I go upside down here. Again, I kind of have the same theory with the nose, where if you do it upside down, you're just looking at the shapes that you see versus, imagining what you think it should be versus what it actually is. So yeah, occasionally I will go upside down here, but overall, I think it still worked out pretty well. And I was able to still kind of have this cool curl. This is probably like the reason why I really wanted to do the statue. It didn't have to be Statue of David. I just kind of wanted to find a close-up of a statue, and I wanted to see the hair specifically. It's just so pretty when you can get that effect, especially when you're carving in marble. That takes real talent. And for me, statues are they are gorgeous works of art. Now, I personally can't make a statue, so here we have the next best thing, which would be drawing a statue. So, but this is the end here as I'm finishing up. A little close up here, and thank you for watching, guys. Enjoy.